Well, she's a weird one because she has so many characteristics that you would think that everyone who's a progressive would want as a president. She is a veteran who twice served overseas, twice deployed. She's been a veteran for a long time congresswoman. She's from Hawaii. She's Hawaiian. You would say she's a woman of color.
They say she's a woman of color.
She's a very articulate, rock-solid woman, and they've tried to find a bunch of dirt on her, and they can't. They don't know what to do.
He got asked about Tulsi Gabbard. And the reporter, the journalist said, there are foreign allies who are very nervous about sharing intelligence with her. And he said, oh, I don't know. I'm surprised to hear it. I heard that for the first time the other day. I mean, I think she's a great American. I think she's got tremendous common sense. This woman with tremendous common sense, Tulsi Gabbard, went to Syria, met with Assad, legitimized him as a member of Congress, then came back here and advocated for him. You're telling me this woman went over there, came back and advocated for him, and she's got common sense? Our foreign allies are right to be nervous about sharing intelligence with her.
What do you get when you mix the unfiltered commentary of Joe Rogan, the often bewildering pronouncements of The View, and a jaw-dropping $50 million lawsuit? You get a nuclear-level roast served with a hefty side of legal drama. And folks, it is delicious. Tulsi Gabbard, the former congresswoman and presidential candidate, just went full savage, slapping The View with a lawsuit so massive, Whoopi Goldberg's wig nearly filed for witness protection. And who's got front row seats, a microphone, and a flamethrower of sarcasm ready to go? None other than Joe Rogan. He's not just watching, he's commentating, and trust us, he is not holding back. Grab your popcorn, because this isn't just a lawsuit. It's a roast battle with potentially very real, very expensive legal consequences.
And we'll get to that. I want to start with something that I think is also important about facts, because recently on your show here...
I was just going to get to that.
Good. Helping you out.
You want me to ask you the question?
No, look, some of you have accused me of being a traitor to my country, a Russian asset, a Trojan horse, or a useful idiot, I think was the term that you used. Which basically means that I'm naive or lack intelligence to know what's going on.
They use that.
It finally happened. After years of what many perceive as reckless pronouncements and character assassinations disguised as hot takes, someone actually took The View seriously enough to sue them. And not just any lawsuit, a $50 million, bat-swinging, PR-flattening legal monster, courtesy of Tulsi Gabbard. Apparently, she got tired of being casually tossed around by a table full of what some describe as shrieking daytime TV hosts, like a fun fact in a particularly unhinged gossip column. If you were wondering how long it would take before someone called their bluff with an actual subpoena instead of just a strongly worded tweet, well, wonder no more. The day of reckoning for The View's unique brand of commentary may have arrived.
Yeah, did you watch the episode when Tulsi Gabbard got on to defend herself and Joy Behar starts panicking and going over her notes while Tulsi is refuting everything that she said?
Yeah, I mean, Joy Behar, like, again, these people have dementia. These are people who, like, should not be allowed out of the house. They have a national platform. I mean, it is crazy. They have no idea. These people have never read, like, a book.
And there's versions of it. Because she is a strong woman. She is a person who served overseas twice.
And of course, it didn't take long for Joe Rogan to hop on this flaming bandwagon of televised recklessness and make himself comfortable. Rogan, with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer wrapped in podcast merch, tore into The View hosts like they were a sampler platter of media malpractice. He was practically laughing his way through the unfolding mess. Like a guy who just watched a house of cards he'd been predicting would fall for years, finally collapse in a gust of its own hot air. He's been poking holes in mainstream media narratives for ages. And The View, with its often baffling takes and what he sees as rampant cognitive dissonance, is like his Mount Everest of media absurdity.
I want to let your viewers know exactly who I am.
All right.
Set the record straight. I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
Well, I guess we're getting a little bit far ahead of ourselves, but Franklin Graham finds you refreshing. He doesn't find me refreshing.
The lawsuit stems from alleged defamatory statements made by hosts of The View, particularly Joy Behar, who, along with others, reportedly characterized Gabbard as a Russian asset, a traitor, or a useful idiot. These are not light accusations, especially against a military veteran and former member of Congress. Tulsi, during a tense on-air confrontation on the show itself, directly refuted these claims, highlighting her service and patriotism. But The View, true to form as critics would say, seemed to double down. Tulsi didn't just storm off the set or fire off an angry tweet, she went full courtroom drama, filing a lawsuit that suggests the sandbox rules of daytime TV don't override real-world consequences for defamation.
Richard Spencer, the white nationalist leader, says he could vote for you.
Joy, this is why.
I mean, you're on Tucker Carlson at least 10 times. Why don't you go on Chris Wallace's show?
This is why I'm here, because you and other people continue to spread these innuendos that have nothing to do with who I am.
Well, Hillary Clinton started it, and then you shot back at her, boy. You called her the queen of warmongers.
You doubled down, unfortunately, you doubled down on the baseless accusations that she made that strikes at the core of who I am. I'm a soldier. Because of the attacks on 9/11, I enlisted in the military to go after and defeat and destroy the evil that visited us on that day. I've served now for over 16 years, deployed twice to the Middle East during the height of the war, where every single day I saw firsthand the terribly high human cost. It's why I ran for Congress.
Rogan, watching this unfold, practically needed a seatbelt to keep from falling out of his chair with glee. Finally, someone with the audacity, the receipts, and the legal ammunition was challenging a show that, in his view, thinks yelling louder means winning. He roasted them without mercy, not just for the alleged defamation against Gabbard, but for being what he and others perceive as a cultural punchline, masquerading as informed commentary. He likened their debate style to a family argument on Thanksgiving, except less fact-checked and with more commercial breaks. He gleefully broke down how The View operates. Take a current event, add a spoonful of ignorance, stir in copious amounts of personal bias, and serve it lukewarm to a half-asleep audience. It wasn't just criticism, it was a full-blown evisceration of their entire brand.
Saw you on The View.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been overwhelming my past couple days. So I just went in there, did my thing. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who Sunny Hostin was. I actually still really don't know. So I wasn't expecting necessarily for her to kind of try to ambush me in that way and attack my character in that way.
Well, it is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
yeah.
it is a rabies-infested henhouse.
Rogan lit up the hosts like a bonfire built out of discarded cue cards and ill-conceived buzzwords. He pointed out how the show had become a safe space for unfounded accusations dressed up as moral outrage, as if dramatic pauses and synchronized hand-clapping counted as credible sourcing. He mocked how each host often acts like an oracle of absolute truth, when, in reality, it frequently feels like a rotating door of surface-level sound bites and recycled Twitter arguments. And let's be real, Tulsi Gabbard isn't exactly the easiest person to casually slander and expect no repercussions. She's a former congresswoman, a military veteran, and someone who has spent more time around actual policy and international affairs than most of The View hosts have probably spent fact-checking a single script. She walked away from the traditional party line, which, in the eyes of an echo chamber allergic to dissent, made her the perfect target.
Has to be, if you average out The View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And so it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin's
You think it's
dumb.
deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on, for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say.
What The View hosts allegedly did was more than just offer a bad take. It was, according to Gabbard's lawsuit, a career-damaging hit job wrapped in faux concern and delivered with smug self-assurance. Tulsi's lawsuit essentially says, "Congratulations, you played yourselves. Now, explain it to a judge." She didn't counter with a press tour or a series of passive-aggressive tweets. She went full courtroom drama, demonstrating a level of strategic composure that seems utterly alien to the freewheeling chaos of The View. And that's precisely when Joe Rogan transformed from an amused commentator into an unofficial, enthusiastic hype man for Gabbard's legal challenge. For Rogan, this wasn't just about Tulsi. It was about taking a significant shot at a media machine he believes thrives on superficiality, spin, and operates in a fact-light, opinion-heavy universe. He practically cheered her on for having the guts to do what so many others who've been on the receiving end of media pylons only complain about in private group chats and frustrated Reddit threads.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stop looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critically thinking about this.
Rogan went in hard, mocking how The View hosts consistently act like the final authority on complex issues despite their collective understanding, often barely stretching past trending hashtags on X. He didn't just laugh at their specific takes on Gabbard, he dismantled their entire operating model. The View, in his scathing eyes, is less of a talk show and more of a morality cosplay convention, where facts are entirely optional and volume is mistaken for victory. And Tulsi, with her lawsuit, played this situation like a seasoned strategist. No public theatrics, just meticulously prepared paperwork, no emotional monologues for the camera, just precise legal citations. While the hosts were busy perfecting the fine art of dramatic eye rolls and interrupting each other mid-cliche, Tulsi was quietly lawyering up, ready to turn their passive-aggressive shade into court-admissible evidence.
Show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her, and they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show.
The lawsuit itself has pulled back the curtain on how irresponsibly some media platforms can wield their immense influence. And Joe Rogan, being the patron saint of independent media skeptics and a perennial critic of mainstream narratives, gleefully turned his high-powered spotlight on the entire ecosystem. He pointed out how daytime TV shows like The View often package outrage as entertainment, present fact-free speculation as courageous truth-telling, and treat thoughtful clapbacks as informed debate. He joked that the show might now need to hire an actual competent legal advisor to sit alongside their wardrobe stylist, or better yet, maybe invest in a basic civics tutor for the panel. Because when your primary mode of journalism involves talking over your co-host while confidently mispronouncing foreign policy terms, perhaps you shouldn't be utterly shocked when someone decides to sue you for it.
Worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is and Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
Rogan didn't just stop at the lawsuit against Gabbard. He spiraled into a comedic teardown of how these shows even get made. He painted a picture of a panel of hosts, each desperately trying to outrage the other. Armed with a stack of notes, likely written by an intern who once Googled current events during their lunch break. He laughed about how the show keeps pretending it's shaping vital national dialogue when it can barely navigate a single topic without getting hopelessly lost in a forest of buzzwords and personal anecdotes. This isn't just a petty squabble between personalities, it's a cultural Rorschach test. Do you see a brave woman, Tulsi Gabbard, standing up to relentless media bullying and defending her reputation? Or do you see a thin-skinned ex-politician trying to cash in on a legal challenge? If you're Joe Rogan, and likely a significant portion of the internet, it's definitely the former, and he's not alone in that assessment. The number of people who cheered online when the news of Gabbard's lawsuit hit could probably fill a stadium, or at least a very, very enthusiastic and highly engaged subreddit. What makes this situation even more delicious, from a media critic's perspective, is that The View didn't see it coming. They probably assumed their usual studio lighting and the applause signs would protect them from any real consequences. But it turns out courtrooms aren't lit for daytime drama. They're lit for facts, evidence, and accountability. 3 things the show, according to its detractors, seems to struggle with once the teleprompter runs out of pre-approved sass. Rogan's mockery came with a grin, but it also came with receipts. He pointed to how often daytime shows like The View skate by on the thinnest understanding of complex topics, only to act shocked and offended when someone with actual knowledge challenges their often nonsensical pronouncements. For him, this lawsuit was long overdue. Tulsi Gabbard's legal action wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was framed as a necessary warning shot, one that might finally echo through every other studio in America that has a comfy couch, a hot mic, and a panel of hosts who think opinions are a substitute for research. The fallout from this is only just beginning. Media insiders are already clutching their pearls and checking their network's insurance policies. Legal teams across the industry are probably binge-watching past episodes of The View to audit the oops moments. And Joe Rogan? He's likely prepping another podcast episode, perhaps titled something like, Why Screaming on Daytime TV is Not a Valid Legal Defense. This isn't just about Tulsi Gabbard versus The View. It's about the potential for a seismic shift in media accountability, and everyone is watching to see how the dominoes fall.